Hello, viewers and listeners. This is the L. Henderson Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. Folks, I'm glad to hear from you from time to time. We are very concerned about what we are sharing with you. We find that some people think it's a little too stressful to hear the real news. And then you hear someone talking about don't criticize the human enemies of mankind, their relatives and their financial supporters. And they're asking what that's all about. It's very clear and simple, ladies and gentlemen. I've been telling you for a long time that when you have problems on the local, state, national, and international level, the people that are in power will do everything they can to keep that power base and exclude others, even some of their own people. And that's the way it's supposed to be in a jungle where you only have so much fruit, so much food, and the strong will take it and the others will starve, or they will just share a little bit to have a few allies until they get tired of them or use them. And that's the way man is throughout the world and has always been that way. Listen to me now, always been able to take, destroy, and make sure that he is in a position of responsibility and take everything from you if you don't fight back. That's the key. The bullies of the world are just like local bullies in these schools and other places, like the Klan, like the police and others. They always gang together and beat up on people, take what they have, put them in jail, deny them their so-called constitutional rights, which you don't have too many in the Constitution that you can automatically get. No matter what happens, you have to go to court and let them give you another interpretation of the law. And that's why today, my good friends, we're going to talk about two things with some conclusions at the end, and it's going to be referencing organizing. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind and their supporters. Let's look at what we will address today. Some national news items, and then we will get into my favorite topic that most people don't like to hear about. I will give you a little information about how to prepare for World War III Part 1 and Part 2. I've been told through the comments that don't talk about it. It's too stressful. So we're not going to have World War III Part 1 and 2. Folks, we have had over 350 major wars during the last 30 years throughout the world. And right now we have about 260 wars going on in local states and regions throughout the world today, on all the continents. North America, South America, Latin America, all around the world. People are fighting because they want to take over your land, your resources. They want to take over your space so they can have it and put you in a concentration camp or a relocation camp, or just kick you out of your own country or your own land. And if they don't do that, they will partition a small part and say this is your place and put you in a little area where you're living just like rats. And they determine when you are fed, when you're given medical care, when you are able to get heat and energy, and when you are able to move from one place to another. That's why it's not important, folks, to criticize your enemy. You have to organize. And the first thing that I'll address today, I told you earlier, is going to be what we call current news. All current news is old news. Anything that's current is something that happened before. And that's why I tell people you should know your past, but you most certainly shouldn't put too much time on revisiting your past. Once you know what has happened to you, you're supposed to then concentrate on two things. One is your current situation and how you're going to prepare for your future and 300 years. That's what it's about. Look at how you can improve your current situations by organizing, by pooling your resources, by training your own leaders, by placing your leaders that you train in certain institutions such as education and training arena, in politics, in economic development units, in religion and leadership positions throughout the world in all areas where you are in the majority. Some of you don't like to hear the fact that the so-called black folks, people of color, constitute about 75% of the population worldwide. The others, which some of you all like to call European types, only about 25%. And they are being diluted every day throughout the world because immigrants are moving, intermarrying with others. And the color line is being speared to the point where people don't know who you are now. So the Europeans throughout the world going to have to create new allies. And they usually start with people that look closer like them. They're sort of close. We call lookalikes, and they would declare them as nationals or as white, even though they might have a little tinge or a little hue that we might call colored. Now, we know you all don't like to hear this, folks, but the fact is, that's why it's important to organize, because when I give you the international perspective today, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Folks, people don't love you because many believe you don't love yourself. You don't want to work hard for yourself. You want to beg the enemies of mankind to give you food, shelter, education, training, economic parity. They are not going to do that. Read the history. And then when you have read it, think about the present and the future for the next 300 years. That's all it is about. Now let's look at some of this current news, what is happening right now in America and the world. We're going to start with our wonderful southern state of Alabama. And this happens in most states, where it says there's another Alabama inmate that died in prison, and his body was returned to his family without organs. And the question is, what's going on? This is nothing new, folks. They have always done this throughout the world, even in biblical times. And it says, basically, I'll just give you a little summary of it, that the body was sent to the University of Alabama in Birmingham for an autopsy. And when the body was received by the family members, it was noted, according to one of the brothers, that all the organs had been robbed from his brother, all organs, including the brain. And he wanted to know, what's going on? What is happening? Brother, it's historically true that poor people and people of color throughout the world have always had a problem with preserving their organs when they are taken over and treated medically by the upper class or the middle class or the university hospitals or the prison hospitals and other places, because history will show, and I want you all to Google this and read it, poor people and people of color have to always understand that medically you are not safe. Even when you're alive, if you are sick or in a prison somewhere, when you die, there's always someone will need your organs to learn how to practice on healing others. Or you have rich people all over the world historically have been able to buy your organs from medical specialists throughout the world. When they need a heart, kidney, eyes, and other things, they know where to get them. You get them from poor people. You get them from black people of color. We call off color. You get those folks. Now, they don't care nothing about you due to racism and historical and institutional racism. But when these rich folks and people that have the police, the legislatures, the governors, and the presidents on their side get sick, they want an organ. And they will take them. Another good example of this is when they have these wars, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes, you'll find that the rich usually don't allow their sons and daughters, especially their sons, to participate in the war. And if they do, they give them desk jobs, make sure they get commissions, and many of them that are super rich will send one or two of their sons to a military war zone, and that's usually because the son demanded that he would get a chance to do like his peers, this upper class. But most of them go to areas or what we call arenas where there's not much live fire. They stay in their country of origin and train the others to send them. And if they are super rich, they're allowed not to participate in the military at all. Read your history. Look at what happened in the United States, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, for years and centuries. The rich could always pay someone else to go to war for them, or just not go and pay medical people and others to say, I have medical problems that will not allow me to fight. So therefore, I want to be able to stay where I am, continue to go to school, continue to work in my family business, or just leave me alone. I go somewhere where there is not much fighting. And this happens many times throughout the world, especially during the Vietnam War. Many of the rich folks, and this is current news, decided my son will not be participating in the Vietnam War. He's going to Canada or other places. And the poor and the black people throughout the world, I'm talking about poor blacks, poor whites, poor Hispanics, and other so-called colored types in America were sent to the war. World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, Vietnam, all of those wars that happened in Asia and Africa and other places. You find that the black folks fought them on the ground many times, hand-to-hand combat. And many of them survived, went back to their countries, went back to their nations, went back to their states, and they still were treated like low-down manger dogs in the past, in the present, and will be in the future unless these same people that I'm talking about organize, recruit, select, train, and then give their people that they have created as new people that believes in fairness, in justice, and constitutional law, the ability to be in positions of responsibility, and then they can spend the money, buy the goods and service they need for all the people, streamline racism, systemic and international, out of local, state, and federal governments and institutions. That can happen, but it won't happen if you learn to pray for your enemies, if you learn to love your enemies more than you love yourself. Folks, this is hard news, but this is current. It happened in the past, and it's going to happen in the future if you don't organize and stop criticizing the human enemies of mankind. Now, you know, if you listen, and many of you have been listening and talking to me and asking me on social media, who are those folks that you are talking about, the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their financial supporters? I'm not going to tell you everything. I'm going to let you find that out by Googling these words and these terms and see who is on top, who is on the top of the mountain, looking down the sides of the mountain, looking down in the valley, and looking at the people that are doing their best to rise and see who is pushing them back through their military, through their police force, through their juries and court systems, through their relocation camps. Google it. Find out who they are. And you will not be surprised, but many of you will pretend that you are surprised to see that you will be looking at your neighbors, some of your relatives, some of your distant relatives, some that are in government. Others are in what we call the industrial complex. Others are included in the colleges and universities. Others are major actors that are leaders in great institutions and organizations that are supported by the government and the court systems. That's the first thing. We're talking about current news, about how if you are poor, you can't expect to get all your organs if you don't die at home and have a coroner to come to your home and say this man is dead. Take him directly to the funeral home and then monitor the funeral home for 2 or 3 days and make sure you have your relatives' body parts intact, if that's what you want to do, or just continue to let people do what they want and you suffer the consequences of evil, where you are running around begging people to follow the law, where you are saying, I'm not going to vote for anyone because the system is rigged. Of course it's rigged. It's supposed to be, because the people that have the power want to keep you out. That's what they're supposed to do. So your job is to figure out ways to get them out by organizing, pooling your resources, pooling your talents, training your own people, selecting the best in those groups, and then put them in responsibilities of, I would say, areas of responsibility in education, training institutions, including the military, the court systems, at these great colleges and universities, in these big industrial complex that include everything. You got to get your folks in those areas. So when you start having things happening and they freeze the information and won't give it to you, you can call the police department. I'm just going to give you an example and find out who shot John Doe in the streets and left him there. Said he was resisting arrest. It is just like this new law that they are looking at now. Now I want you all to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you are not going to believe it, but another current event that is happening in certain places, I'm not going to name the state at this time, but whenever you reviewing the current events on your television, your local news, when you start reading or Googling, you're going to find now that people are getting ready to do something that is very, very important to know. They are saying in the past that we are going to use the horses, the dogs, and the fire engines and their personnel to beat you, to allow the dogs to eat you almost alive, whether you're old, sick, pregnant, or in a wheelchair. We're going to run over you with the horses and stomp you down and beat you with sticks and whips. And then we're going to get the fire people, we call it the good firemen, the protectors of property, to spray you so hard, so long, until it knocks the hair off your head, tear your clothes off your body, and then turn the dogs on you and force a march on you with the horses and let them trample you until you run away or get arrested and go to jail and be beaten, halfway starved for weeks and months without legal aid. The idea now, they are saying that if you have a situation in your local, state, or federal area where you are in conflict with the police and you kill a police dog defending yourself, you are subject to 5 years in prison. That's automatic. That is the law that they're looking at. And if it's passed, it's already a criminal act to hurt an animal. When you're dealing with the police, you hurt their dog, they are saying you need 5 years in prison, you're going to be fined, and many other things going to happen to you. But that same policeman will kill you, and in less than 5 days, he or she will be sitting at their office with desk duty, and they are proud of that. They say, man, I don't have to patrol these streets and work at night and do all these kind of things. They're going to put them on a good shift and say, we are going to investigate this situation. But if you kill that police dog, you're going to be sitting up in jail looking for a public defender to help you get out of jail, asking your mother for bail money to get you out. Now, folks, we know that I'm telling you about current events. We're going for a break now, and we will come back, and I will briefly give you a little information on international affairs and tell you and show you that you better start organizing, because if you don't, you're not going to have to worry about getting killed in the battle. You will not be participating in the battle because they don't need a lot of you like they used to. But I'm going to tell you more about it after this break. We're going to have a short break, and I'll be back with Organize, Don't Criticize, the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their financial supporters. Let's say amen to that. Stay tuned for the advertisements.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
I want to say thank you for listening, folks. We are glad to have you back. We've just looked at a wonderful commercial about certain things that's happening in Mississippi and other places. But I want to continue with Organize, Don't Criticize. This is the L. Henderson's real news show, Organize, Don't Criticize, the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their supporters. Now, some of you also been asking, and I will address this too, that since we don't know who the human enemies of mankind are, who are they? I told you in my first part of this show, I'm not going to tell you. But I will tell you that if you look at some of the historical representatives that we have with certain last names that's been in positions on the local, state, and national and international level for many years, all you have to do is look at who their relatives were for the last 200 or 300 years. That's one way to find out who the relatives are of the human enemies of mankind, by name. you can find that they are some of the same people from the same families, the same last names. They are doing just like their old fathers and their mothers, their uncles, their cousins. They in government. They in industry. They in the churches. They in the universities. They everywhere. And they do this because they practice affirmative action. If their old daddy or mother attend a big university, they can go without a problem. If their old father was a military person, they can get in West Point. Of course, they have to have a few qualifications, but if they just have just enough to get in, they're going to get in. Then they graduate at the bottom of the class, and they get a big job somewhere as an officer in the military, sitting around delegating, not doing a lot of fighting, unless you're what we call a first lieutenant. You might get out there and do a little something. But if you're super rich, you will not be in a battle. You'll be at your home state or in your home nation training others for war. Some of you don't believe me. Now, since we're going to talk about international problems now, I just want to mention two more little short things that's happening on the national scene that has a lot of international connotation. And it is this stuff that's going on. I call it stuff and myths that's going on in New York City, Chicago, in certain parts of Florida and Texas and other places where the states are preparing to fight the federal government about the immigration problem, where they are allowing the immigrants throughout the world to just walk into the United States without even worrying about being caught or put in prison or put in jail or being deported. They just allow them to walk in. And some of these old state governors are saying, that's not right. Say, we can't have that. Say, we don't have a lot of resources in our country or in our state, and we want you all Democrats and Republicans and others to put a check system on our border, on our southern border. They're not worried about the northern border because you don't have a lot of Hispanics and people of color coming from the northern side of the border. They are getting in through various means, and all of them not legal. Some of you don't believe it, but just Google that and find out the differences with the northern border and the southern border of the United States. Now, they are allowing these immigrants to come into this country for a reason. Usually, it is for two reasons, political and economic. Because they have certain groups in America that they are tired of. And they have already done everything they can to destroy them, eliminate them, kill them, terminate them through other means by putting them in prison, long term, or segregating them to the point where they live like rats in tenements and what I call relocation camps, which now we call them urban ghettos or inner city ghettos and other things. And now they are saying, we got to replace these people. Now, some of you don't want to believe real news. This is international, where they are allowing people from all over the world to enter the United States through that southern border. And I told you before, many are easing in through that northern border. But they are usually different types of immigrants. Now, I want you all to Google the difference in the nationalities of the people that are coming from the northern border versus the southern border. Look how easy it's for those folks. And then look at their nationalities versus the southern border and look at their nationalities and see if there's a difference. I'm not going to tell you whether there's a difference or not. I want you to do your own research so you learn how to organize And then you won't have to criticize your folks that's doing these things to you. You can start working on something for yourself in areas where you're in the majority. Now let's look at what's going on. These governors receive these wonderful immigrants, and they are leaving their countries for many reasons. Some say the terrorists are killing us. Others say we have dictators in our government. Others are saying they are selling so many drugs, the drug lords own the politicians. They are taking our children and making them participate in gang activities, including our daughters. They are making us pay bribes when we get kidnapped, and we are tired of being kidnapped. We are tired of being sexually abused. We are tired of being in a position where we can't get a good education. We are tired of allowing the same political families and industrial specialists that are owning these companies control the government, and they get 90% of the goods and services, which is only 2% of them versus 98% of us that's only getting 2% of the goods and services. And the 2% at the top getting 98%. Some of you all are saying, man, that's not happening in the world. Check it out. Check it out. Your job is to be a student of the world. Find out what's going on, because start getting your neck tickled so you can start thinking for a change and say, I must organize. This man is telling all these lies. I want to check him out, because I don't believe that the people in power don't love me. I don't believe that they are not interested in equity and fairness for all the citizens. I don't believe that the church and the colleges and universities will discriminate against me because I'm a person of color or because I'm poor, regardless of race. I'm not going to say whether it's true or not. You check it out and you find out for yourself. So let's get back to this international news where I'm talking about immigration. Now, they are allowing these immigrants to come to this country and other countries, but specifically here in America. We'll talk about the European immigrants later on. They are allowing this for a reason, for political reason, economic reasons. A lot of you know that they have anywhere from 48 to 49 million so-called black people in America. Some of you don't believe it's that many here. And I'm not talking about all those black people that's been passing for white since the 1930s and 40s. And many of those left the South. We're not going to get in that. We're not going to get into it. We talked about that earlier. But today I'm going to just tell you, when they get all of these immigrants in here, they are so lenient with them. They love them so much. At the same time, they won't even pass legislation to do anything about it. You have a lot of resolutions that are being put forth between the Democrats and Republican parties on the national level. And they are fighting these resolutions because they are saying you're not harsh enough. Or some are saying we're going to dilute this so it won't pass by putting bills together where we're going to give money to international terrorist groups and nations throughout the world, going to give them billions of dollars so they can fight among themselves while we ignore this immigrant problem. You see the perspective that I'm giving you, folks? Some of you don't think about these things. You just believe the Lord is going to make things all right for us. I hear it all the time. Say the Lord is a fair God. He's going to punish my enemies. That is not going to happen. Jesus Christ, the God of mankind, not going to punish your enemies. Your enemies, as a collective of individuals, not going to be going to hell no more than you are. They are not going to be going to heaven no more or less than you are. So you got to look out for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. while you're on earth. And we won't have all these problems. Because before, and some of you don't believe me, but you'll see, say, oh, that old crazy man, he was right. Before December the 31st, 2029, you're going to have some kind of blanket executive orders. It's not going to be passed by Congress. It's going to be debated in Congress. But before it happened, one of the presidents, Republican or Democrats, going to have, we call it, blanket voting rights that's going to be given to immigrants, because they don't even know how many in America. But they're going to get these people fed up real good, give them training in English, provide them with that wonderful prepaid credit card where they can live in those nice hotels and apartments that they're going to give them, get in these training programs and become good American citizens before they give them that blanket amnesty, which means we don't know where you are. We don't know how many you have just gotten over here with our complicity. But since you are here now, you know English, you know a little about the American racist culture. We're going to declare you free to become a citizen, because we already have backlogs that last from 2 to 6 years to try to get you to become a citizen. We just give you blanket amnesty. Whereas off next month, on a certain day at a certain time, you're going to be citizens. Those folks will be trained to have what we call the European or white perspectives. Many are going to be declared white. Some of you just don't like to hear this. You don't like to hear it. And they are letting these people know now that you are going to be taken care of, and no matter what you do, we are not going to allow you to be punished. And that's why you saw on the news the other day, a lot of you saw it, where a bunch of immigrants beat the devil out of some law enforcement officials. And they walked away giving their sign, saying, we are over here now because you love us. You allow us to come without qualifications. You don't know whether I'm a gangbanger, whether I'm a terrorist or not. But you know I'm probably one or the other. And you know that you love me because you allow me to come over here, and don't bother me. Those guys were not even arrested. They walked away with permission. And then if you do the same thing, and you're the other group that I'm going to be talking about, you beat a police down just like they are stepchildren. Walk away after you kick them and break the bones and so forth. And if you off another group, they will call in about 50 or 60 others with helicopters above you, with dogs and fire hoses and everything else, and men on horses with whips. And they're going to go through that neighborhood. And somebody's going to tell who those people were that beat up on the law enforcement people. And you're going to be arrested. And some of you don't believe that you are going to tell because you say, we don't talk in the ghetto. You really do. I used to be a police officer, and those gangbangers will talk once you get them up in those little rooms with 5 or 6 police officers standing there, some acting good like they are there to protect your interests, and others are not. In an hour or two, you're going to talk. You're going to start giving names. But I'm not going to tell you what they will do to you until you start talking. I don't want to talk about that. We have a family show here. We'll talk about organizing, not criticizing. So when that happens, folks, and they have this blanket amnesty, and people start looking at what's going to happen to that 47 million? It'll be about 48 or 49 million black folks then, when they give this blanket amnesty to these immigrants that's coming from all over the world. I'm going to tell you, folks, you're going to be worse off than you were in slavery. You're not going to have a defined national territory. You're going to be locked into certain urban and rural ghettos. When you were a slave, you were able to work in about 15 or so different states. Move around with food, clothing, shelter, a guaranteed job, and enough medical care to keep you alive for 40 or 50 years. But after they give this blanket amnesty, with all of these immigrants that's coming from China, all from Latin America, all over Latin America, from Haiti, and other places, from the north and the southern borders, you are not going to be wanted, folks. The Constitution, the police, the jury system, all going to be against you. And your land, your homes, going to be taken all over America through what we call eminent domain, where they say, we are going to take your city. We have fixed it where you don't have enough money to promote good things in your city. Your education system has fallen apart. You can't keep your infrastructure together because we made sure you're not going to have enough money to do it. So we're going to take all of that over. We're not going to tell you to leave if you refuse to sell your property, but we're going to legally take most of it. And the few that have enough money to fight us in court, we're going to allow you to stay in your individual domain, your house or your little business on the corner. We're going to build new apartments and businesses, high-rises and others all around you, and increase the taxes. John Doe, you know you're only paying $600 for taxes this year. When they take over after December the 31st, 2029, throughout all the states in America and many other nations in the world, you're going to find your tax is going to rise from $500 or $600 a year to $5,000 or $6,000. And you're going to be isolated. You're going to have to sell that home. You're going to have to go and let that business go. You're going to be broke. You're not going to be able to build or buy an apartment or a house or a home in your old neighborhood. You're not going to have the funds to do it. You're not going to be able to send your child to the so-called public schools. The structure in these schools is going to be changed. There will be fewer public schools throughout America. They're going to be called charter schools, religious schools, independent schools, homeowners associations where they set up educational facilities in certain residential areas and have your child taught at home through a system of what we call virtual learning. The universities and others going to change the requirements. You're not going to have what we call the opportunity to go to the state university or college unless you have certain qualifications. And I'm not talking about just a high school diploma as you can have now, right now in America. Anyone that finished high school with a D plus average, I say D now, can get into some kind of training institution somewhere in America, in a private or public community college or training program like the Job Corps or whatever. And you can move from there and get yourself in a position at a college or university if you do well. And I'm going to tell you now, folks, that that's what's going to be happening. Now, this is a 3-part program. And since I'm not going to get any farther in these international perspectives today, I'll talk about it next week, and some of it tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with the Doc and Sock Show. And as you know, tomorrow is Thursday. We'll be back again on the Doc and Sock Show on Friday from 8 to 9. We're going to talk about some of these things and others, but on next Monday and Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m., we're going to be recording the L. Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, and we're going to get back to this, and I'll be talking about my favorite topic that you all don't like to hear. I'm going to be talking about World War III Part 1 and Part 2 that's coming. Some of you don't believe it. You say, man, we are not going to have World War III. They say we will never have international wars again. It will not happen again. It's going to happen again. It's going to be worse. It's going to be worse than World War I, II, and the Civil War. You're going to have millions of people being dead with fewer soldiers taking care of that, because now technology is going to get you. That's why they don't need certain people in America and the world. They don't need a lot of poor people to feed. So I'm going to conclude by saying stay tuned to WeBelieveDigital.com. And if you want to know more about this show and what you can do and get by viewing WeBelieveDigital.com, all you have to do is call 1-800-492-5186. And if you want to talk to the staff with the L. Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, all you have to do is call 601-201-1957, or you just send an email to clu369@gmail.com and say, we want to see you. We want you to come and visit us, talk to us at our church, school, family reunion, community organization, and give the news, the real news about organizing, don't criticizing, that you can't give on this podcast. And that's it, folks. We don't tell you everything, because we know we don't want you to get sick mentally and psychologically by hearing things that will put you in the bed. We don't want you staying off work, calling a doctor, worrying about what's going to happen to you. That's why we can't tell you everything. So if you want to hear the real news with solutions, call us or email us, and we'll come to you and tell you how you can start changing things in your life in 30, 60, or 90 days by organizing and not criticizing the human enemies of mankind, their relatives, and their financial supporters. Until next time, goodbye.